Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webcast on standardization in large volume subcutaneous delivery, a collaborative approach. I'm Tim Wright, editor of Contract Pharma, and the sponsor of today's session is Grand River Aseptic Manufacturing. They're a leading CDMO specializing in sterile injectable fill and finish services for liquid and lyophilized vials, syringes, and cartridges. If you want to learn more about them, go ahead and click their logo at the top of the page there at any time during today's presentation. And our speakers today are Mary Lou Glotzbach. She's the Senior Manager for Drug Delivery Partnerships at Grand River, and Greg Mokes, the Executive Vice President of New Business Development at LTS Device Technologies. Thank you both for joining us today. And today, Mary Lou and Greg are going to talk about, among other things, the importance of CDMOs and drug device innovators collaborating, the benefits of standardized offerings of large volume primary containers and components, and how to eliminate extra investments and timeline extensions for unique primary containers. We will be accepting your questions throughout the talk, so feel free to send those in using the box at the bottom of your screen at any time. Questions will be answered after the presentation in a brief Q&A. And to enhance your viewing experience today, feel free to customize your window display. You can do that by moving the windows around, by clicking the top header of each window and dragging those things around. And you can also activate the closed caption function by clicking the CC button in your media player. And feel free to share your reactions to today's content with the emojis provided. Mary Lou and Greg will be able to see your reactions in real time. And while today's presentation is not available for download, there is a PDF resource available for you in the related content box. So go ahead, be sure to download that at your convenience anytime during today's webcast. And lastly, if you're experiencing any technical difficulties, you can type those into the question box as well, and someone on the back end here will help you out. At this point, I'm going to drop off, turn it over to Greg and Mary Lou, and I will come back on at the end for the Q&A. So it's all yours, guys.
Thank you, Tim. So just a brief overview of the presentation. Thanks for the introduction. My name is Greg Mokes. I'm EVP of New Business Development for LTS Lohmann's Device Technologies Group. And I will be leading off the presentation and explaining a little bit of the background of on-body delivery systems that necessitate this partnership. Okay.
Hi,
Go ahead, Mary Lou. Sorry.
Okay. Mary Lou Glotzbach, and I am at Grand River Aseptic Manufacturing, and I am responsible for our drug delivery partnerships. We've found great value in working with organizations like LTS, and that is where my responsibility sits. So welcome, everyone. Glad you're here.
Thanks, Mary Lou. I will get us started by discussing a little bit about our device, on-body delivery devices in general, and what has caused us to talk about this topic of standardization of primary containers and partnerships within the drug delivery value chain. So a little bit of background here is that LTS has a platform device capable of delivering from a vial or a cartridge. I will go into this in more detail over the coming slides. Grand River has a unique, sophisticated method of filling large volume cartridges, and this certainly supports the growing trend of biologic drugs and supports our device. And then the importance of a partnership and the importance of providing more than just the device, but the full end-to-end solution in drug delivery. So highlighting a known issue in drug delivery is that there is often a requirement to attend a clinic. We're seeing this necessity decline as many of the drugs in spaces such as oncology, immunology, and CNS require less and less healthcare provider intervention, and you're seeing more and more safety studies proving out the self-administrability of these drugs. So it's what we're seeing is that a device such as ours can simplify this process, can reduce the risk of non-compliance, and can eliminate or significantly reduce needle stick injury and essentially discomfort associated with delivery in the clinic. A little bit of a case study as an introduction to electromechanical on-body devices. So one of the kind of poster child of on-body electromechanical devices is the Neulasta drug from Amgen, which was originally available in its subcutaneous formulation in a pre-filled syringe. And from a usefulness value add of the device standpoint, Amgen partnered on the development of an on-body device, which actually is automated to deliver a dose after 27 hours being on the body. And this actually eliminates the need for a second hospital visit in the same week that a patient receives chemotherapy. So the innovation and the lifecycle management play here allowed Amgen to keep a majority of market share for over 5 years after the loss of exclusivity. So we see a real world example of the utility of an on-body injector in helping pharmacos keep a larger share of patients. But now on the flip side of the innovator product, LTS Device Technologies partnered with Coherus Biosciences, and we actually developed the first combination product that is both a biosimilar and where the device is the delivery mechanism of the combination product. So we have some experience in this, and just like the innovator product, we set this device to turn on automatically after 27 hours, but with an injection time of 5 minutes versus the predicate of 45 minutes, and also with automatically deploying and retractable needles. So a lesson learned for us in the commercialization of this device is that the patient experience can be improved upon in the biosimilar space. So an interesting learning for us. But really, the goal here is just to show you that the basis of our device is electromechanical, meaning it can be programmed to deliver any infusion profile, and the on-body delivery devices can actually be increased in volume beyond this filled at point of care device. So the net result of this was that the Udenyca product went from 18 to 41% market share in the first 12 months after launch of this biosimilar device. So again, we're seeing on-body delivery systems are able to differentiate a drug product and allow more market share. Now, what is the relevance here is that when we move north of, it's debatable, but a lot of people will see volumes of around 2 milliliters, 2.25 milliliters as a bright line in what can and cannot be delivered via an auto injector. Of course, we do see some innovations beyond that. But for the most part, volumes above 2 milliliters, we're looking at an external primary container, and our platform device, which leads us to the fill finishness need, is essentially the technology of our commercialized OBI, optimized via changes in the external shell to accept any primary container, whether that is a vial or a cartridge. So the way to think about our device is really that we have a delivery mechanism, we have a fluid path, and that remains constant. But by changing the outer shell and changing the interaction of the primary container and the device, we can optimize this device for any primary container. And what this essentially does for us is creates a situation by which we can provide this device in any cartridge or any vial. So you've got 4 configurations there that kind of give some examples of the primary containers that we can interface with. And then in the bottom right corner, some details. So on the vial side, really the exact same device can deliver anything from a 6R to a 25R vial. And from a cartridge size, anything from a 5 mil to a 20 mil. Beyond this, we have concept devices delivering up to 50 milliliters. So we have a lot of options, right? We have a lot of optionality. And one point of this optionality is that nobody is completely aware of where standardization will land in on-body delivery devices. If you look at the breadth of the technology between the different companies that are launching devices, you will see pre-filled and preloaded, you will see filled at point of care, you will see cartridge devices, vial devices. So we really feel like we're future-proofing our device by making it essentially compatible with any primary container. But this is really just part of the story, right? So our ability to tailor a device to a primary container is only as useful as the ability to put together a primary container and to fill and finish a primary container. Now, in the vial world, that's fairly well understood, especially at smaller volumes. But when you start to get into more exotic permutations of glass, rubber, stoppers and plungers, for example, then you start getting into volumes that are not routinely filled and finished. You get into configurations that are not routinely filled and finished. And this led us to a concern, right? We have a device that can handle just about anything, but what if a pharmaco partner comes to us tomorrow and says, please, we'd like to proceed with a 20 milliliter cartridge, who can fill and finish this? So we set out on a mission to find the most versatile, the most knowledgeable partners that we could form partnerships with, not necessarily commercial partnerships, but a partnership of deep understanding, where we have confidentiality agreements in place with all members of the value chain within drug delivery, so that we can have quick and easy conversations with our pharmaco partners by including also fill finish partners and the component manufacturers of the primary containers. So this hopefully is a relatively straightforward and easy to understand summary of where our device meets a need for a fill finish partner among other ecosystem players. So at this point, I will hand over the slides to my colleague, Mary Lou Glotzbach, and we will talk about specifically her vantage point on the same topic. Mary Lou, I hand over to you at this point. I will talk later.
Thank you, Greg. So what I love about this slide is, the fact that it's focused on the primary container. This world is so exciting right now with all the different delivery mechanisms to bring these outstanding therapies to patients, that what I would like everyone to do is to open the door and look inside and realize the value and the importance of talking about that primary container. So Greg, thank you for emphasizing the importance of looking inside and really understanding that primary container. So, as Greg laid out, it is an exciting time right now with biologics growing dramatically. You go back a couple decades and everyone was going to the infusion center, and now they're looking at how to deliver that therapy at home. So from our perspective, what becomes important now when we're looking at large volumes that used to be delivered through an IV bag, that are now looking at, pharma companies now looking at how do I decrease that volume so that it can be delivered at home through a device like the Sorel. So as your formulation team is looking at this, right, they're saying there are trade-offs, technical trade-offs. So as you decrease the volume, you're becoming more concentrated. You still have to deliver that biologic in a concentrated way. But as you concentrate, viscosity comes into play. So, this is just one example of some of the things you need to think about as you're considering a smaller volume. So this is where the partnership with LTS has provided great value, because they now understand some of the complexities that we have to face when we're talking about a drug product that is more viscous, and has different characteristics than when the drug product was at higher volumes. So when we now have LTS, bringing us clients that are interested in their device, but they're also educating them on what things to think about during aseptic filling. And so this is where these partnerships really come in to great value for the client. So some other things, what I'd like to do here is, I'm not going to get technical. This is not technical, but it is so critically important when you're considering large volume delivery. What are some of the things that are critical to think about when you're going to interact with a CDMO? Who's going to aseptically fill your drug product? So one of the first things we always talk about is the volume. How much volume, right? So what is the definition of large volume? When you're looking at, when a pharma company is looking at their pipeline of products, the ideal volume may be different drug product to drug product. So can a single approach or a single platform be the answer to your complete pipeline? Well, the answer to that is directly tied to the filling of your drug product. It's not the only consideration, but it is a very important consideration. So that is why I strongly recommend, as you're considering large volume on-body delivery, bring in a CDMO earlier into your discussions. You need to understand what's important and what are the considerations to have your drug product manufactured aseptically into your primary container. So in regards to aseptic filling, if you look at the picture on the left, this is what we visualize as traditional aseptic filling, right? Across the market, we fill tens of millions of vials every year, right? Well understood, let's call this a 10R vial. It's a very standardized market right now. But with these really fantastic therapeutics that have to be delivered in larger volumes, it's going to offer us new, and I put exciting in quotes, because we at Graham are extremely excited to be part of the value chain, bringing the solution to the patient. But with every new primary container, there will be learnings. And so I would ask that as you start working with a CDMO, that you understand that, right? So that you bring Graham in as part of your team, you're open to sharing about your drug product, and you realize that there may be things that we're learning at the same time you're learning about your drug product. We don't back away from these opportunities. We dove right in. You'll see here the 20 ml cartridge, which we're successfully filling today. So we don't back away from it, but there are challenges. And we welcome the opportunity to be part of your team in regards to those challenges. Another aspect of large volume from a filling standpoint is that a 10 ml cartridge is not necessarily a 10 ml cartridge. So what do I mean by that? In the world of vials, we have now gotten to the point where most of the opportunities that come to us needing a 10 ml primary is in a 10R. So it's in a standard size. So a 10R is a 10R is a 10R, right? We still have some products that need a custom 10 ml vial, and in which case we work with our clients on that. But the world of vials is fairly well standardized. In cartridges, though, that's not the case. So I want to just draw a picture for you what a CDMO for aseptic filling faces as we consider the filling of a 10 ml cartridge, for example. What you have in the picture on the top is a filling line that is enclosed in an isolator, okay? And when a CDMO purchases a line, they look at the market need and they buy that line with certain sets of change parts that will be used to fill various sizes. So various size vials, various size cartridges, various size syringes. But you can't have all sizes on the shelf. And you don't really know where the demand is going to go. So where do you invest? Which size parts will you have? So what we're facing now is that when we have clients coming to us and they want a novel design, we will have to, if the parts aren't sitting on our shelf, then we have to work with the OEM that designed our line to make custom parts. And that's something we're willing to do, and we're doing on a regular basis now. What you need to be prepared for in your discussion with a CDMO is, as you're thinking about a cartridge or you're deciding on what size cartridge, you'll have to bring to a CDMO a drawing of that cartridge. We'll have to understand, is this something we've filled before? You'll have to bring us a drawing of the tub. You'll see on the bottom here that the cartridges sit in a tub. So you'll have to bring us a drawing of the tub. We need to understand the dimensions of that tub. We'll also have to have a drawing of the nest to understand there's a nest that sits in the tub that holds the cartridges in place. And what we find is, due to the fact that these are not standardized yet, that slight variation in a cartridge, a tub, or a nest may result in the need to actually go back to our OEM that designed the line and procure some new parts, okay? So that's happening in the world today because the cartridges are not standardized. So it's just something you need to be aware of as you start working with your CDMO. From a stopper standpoint, if we move forward on a 10 ml cartridge, we send our OEM that designed the line a drawing of a stopper. We define the coding of that stopper, and they build the bowl that holds the stopper and the tracks where the stoppers run down. If you come to us with a new stopper that has a slightly different dimension or a different coating, it may flow differently through those tracks, through that bowl and that track. Again, that's okay, but if it doesn't flow through the bowl and track we have today, we may need to order new parts. And then in regards to those stoppers, they come, as you see here, the line has a box that goes around it that keeps the line sterile, right? So on the back side of this, there'll be a port, and we add the stoppers through that port. You'll have to know when you're choosing a stopper, how that stopper is configured. Does it come in a bag with a port that's a 110 or a 190? So there are different port sizes. So the reason I'm laying out is not to scare people. It's really to let you be prepared as you're working toward your final decision on a primary container. These are all considerations and things that you need to have at the ready when you come to talk to your CDMO. And the result is that the sooner you bring your CDMO into your discussions, the better it's going to be for your overall timeline. So when you think of the timeline from target discovery all the way through launch, in phase 1, you're filling smaller batches. But in phase 2, you're starting to think about larger batches, scaling up. And so at that point, you're going to have to find, if you've made the decision on a primary container, you're going to have to find a location that can fill it for you. And ideally, you've done some homework earlier in phase 1 to start talking to your CDMOs. If you do decide to move forward on a primary container that's novel or not standard, understand that that could result in a 10 to 12 month extension to your timeline if your CDMO doesn't have the parts to run that size tub with that nest, with that cartridge, stopper, coating, etc. So the value of bringing your CDMO in earlier allows you to parallel path some of your clinical trials with the decision to move forward on potentially new parts. So the message here is really, you have CDMOs that are ready to help, ready to fill these for you. But if you do decide to move forward with a custom primary container or one that is a little unique, there are some decisions that need to be made and that could affect your timeline. So start talking to your CDMO sooner. So as we move back to the idea of collaborating across all the different silos, you think about all the partners that are going to help you bring your drug product to market. You have the pharmaceutical company. You have the companies that are supplying the cartridge and the stopper. You have a company like LTS who's going to deliver you the device, and then your fill finish supplier, in this case, Graham, filling your primary container. If each one of those organizations is working within a silo and not collaborating, then from a Graham perspective, we'll keep asking, will the pharmaceutical companies ever need a 10 ml or a 20 ml cartridge? And the decision on moving forward on change parts is delayed. You sit within indecision and inactivity. And then from a pharmaceutical company or LTS perspective, when will a fill finish provider commit to change tools to help us? And again, if we're all sitting within our silos, not talking or collaborating, then again, there's indecision and inactivity. And then you have maybe a pharmaco or a fill finish or even a primary container supplier saying, when will these device companies have clinically available large volume platforms? When should we invest to support those platforms? Again, if you're not collaborating, you're sitting with indecision and inactivity. So I'm now going to hand it back to Greg to talk a little bit more about our collaboration.
Thank you, Mary Lou. So I will take over from you directly on this topic of reducing silos. So from our perspective, again, kind of coming back to the importance of partner choice for us, it's important to partner with a fill finish provider who can think into the future and maybe take some calculated risks, right? So my own thought process around this is if we waited for significant commercial volume of 20 milliliter cartridge-based assets before investing in change parts, we would just never be ready for a customer. So I think number one thing that I'm extremely grateful to Grand River for is the ability to make decisions quickly and the ability to future-proof their business, right? To actually put things in place before they're needed. But of course, what we can do as a device producer, as someone that perhaps sees the need a little bit before the CDMO, is to force that conversation earlier. So an example of that would be that we have, many partners in the clinic, and when they first start to talk about the volume of the asset that we're looking at doing feasibility studies around, or a development study around, we can now enter into a 2, 3, 4, even 5-way CDA. As scary as they sound, we've done them and we've gotten good at them. And the bottom line is we need to talk earlier between the device company, the pharmaco, the fill finish partner, and the component manufacturers of the final, of the primary containers. And if we can do that earlier by bringing together the device company in a collaboration with the fill finish partner, then we can get that information to Mary Lou much quicker than she would be getting it, through any other circumstance, quite frankly. So again, we think these are maybe the 4 key tenets of the folks that need to be involved in this conversation: the primary container manufacturer, the device manufacturer, the pharmaco, ultimately driving all of this, and then the fill finish input. And important to notice that while LTS Device Technologies and Grand River Aseptic Manufacturing are partnered, we're both very open to the fact that this is really more of a partnership to show what collaboration can do. If one of Mary Lou's customers has different devices or auto injectors, or is piecing together their device strategy with multiple suppliers, that's completely fine by us. And likewise, if people already have a fill finish partner, we have that flexibility, right? So I think the take-home message there is that not all trusting, collaborative, very, very valuable relationships have to be purely commercial in nature. In fact, we believe that we're going to provide a lot of value to each other as companies without discussing that at all. We just think starting the conversation earlier is sufficient value, quite frankly. So what does the partnership mean? Mary Lou, I'll turn it right back over to you in terms of what we think this partnership means, benefits to our end users at the end of the day.
Okay, so we feel very strongly. Every time I read these bullets, I feel like just so passionate about them, because this is playing out daily for us, and so paves the path to unprecedented transparency in a non-exclusive relationship. So to Greg's point, we have a non-exclusive relationship, but we are learning from each other, and we're discussing the market needs and helping each other understand where the market might be going, so that we feel more comfortable with investments. It takes a novel technology, such as the filling of 20 ml cartridges, and makes it available. Graham becomes an expert on the Sorel device, and vice versa. We're creating more opportunities for industry knowledge and normalizing large volume on-body device knowledge, understanding. And then we're eliminating silos in the primary container ecosystem, which allows us to simplify decisions to progress both capital and R&D projects. So what does our partnership mean for people that work with us? We have, through these steps, we have pre-resolved issues, already making it easier for the client today. Turnkey solutions for vial or cartridge-based on-body injectors of many volumes. It's resulted in faster decisions on capital projects that are often held up by poor communication between value chain members. I think this is one that is really, really critical to emphasize and overemphasize, is that if you communicate, if you trust, if you collaborate, and you open up, then you're going to allow for faster decisions and more comfort in regards to these capital expenses and moving forward. And the result is a reliable capacity for filling vials or cartridges for an on-body system. So this last slide, I just want to say thank you to everybody for joining. But this last slide is kind of my my go out and conquer message, and that is standardization of primary containers will benefit us all. So we at Graham understand that this is all new. Large volume is new. And so how can you possibly standardize a 20 ml cartridge, a 10 ml cartridge at this point? But I encourage everyone, whether you're looking at your pipeline of drug products, consider standardization. If you're a manufacturer of primary containers, I'd emphasize, please come together with the market and work toward standardization. And then start your primary container discussions early. So the key for me in saying this is we'd prefer not to have a wall full of change parts, that every time there's a new primary container that we have to consider a 10 to 12 month delivery of those change parts. We don't want to deliver that message to every client to say, this is something you have to build into your timeline. So as the market works towards standardization, I would just ask, let's all consider how we can standardize across large volume, because it seems obvious to me that this is the wave of the future, and we all want to make the most effective and efficient process available to our mutual clients as we move forward. So Greg, I want to thank you and the LTS team, as always, for your partnership, and thank you to everybody that joined.
Likewise, Mary Lou, and we've got some interesting questions coming through in the feed as well. So
thanks so much, Greg, Mary Lou, sharing your insights. Terrific talk. Yeah, so everyone, we do have time, about 10, 15 minutes for some Q&A. So if you do have a question and weren't able to get it in during the talk, now's the time you want to go ahead and do so. All right, jumping right in here. This attendee would like to know what are some critical points when selecting the right primary container for the filling process?
Mary Lou, if you want to start, I think your area of expertise, and I'll fill in if I have any insights.
Yeah, I think one of the most important really sits with the device that you're looking at. So if you're considering on body and you need to have, as you're evaluating the different characteristics or capabilities of your on body device, what primary containers can that device work with, right? So that really is critically important. If you're going to move forward with the device, what works with that device? From our perspective, what is important to think about is really toward this idea of standardization. If we could, if we could look at 10 ml, 20 ml, 5 ml, maybe stick to those sizes that are becoming more and more available in the marketplace, that's critical. A lot of the other decisions, siliconization or what your stopper material needs to be, those are very similar to what you're working with today with your vial. So, so those types of decisions, I think it's really critically important to sit down with whoever is manufacturing. If you have your product in a vial today, what are their offerings in regards to into cartridges that can help you move from a vial to a cartridge, for example. Greg, I don't know if you want to comment with your clients on how you help them decide what's best for your device.
Absolutely. So from our standpoint, it's a fairly simple case of the least disruption to the pharmaco is usually to deliver from vials. But the limitations there are, as I spoke to the design of our device, we can really design our outer shell around any primary container that a pharmaceutical company brings to us. One of the issues is that the vial's dimensions are fairly standardized, as you pointed out. So we cannot change the diameter, the length of the vial, so we have to build the device around that. Cartridges offer a little bit more variability in the footprint of a device, because you can get, take a 3 mil cartridge, for example, you can have a long skinny 3 mil cartridge, you can have a short and a stocky 3 mil cartridge. So there's a little bit more ability to design the device around a cartridge. But with a vial, you have the limitation of the footprint. So that's some of the things that we would talk about, that trade-off between ease of fill finish and ease of use and deployment at the patient level.
Right.
And actually, there's a few more questions, Tim, that I can knock out, actually, that they're technical questions around the device that I can talk to. So the relationship with other cartridge and plunger suppliers, very good question. We try in exactly the same approach, right? So we have relationships with all of the major component suppliers, whether on the kind of rubber or glass side of things. And that's for exactly the same reason. We do not know where standardization is going. Therefore, we are not in the business of telling the pharmacos what primary container vendors to go to. We just need to be aware of how all of them work, and we'd like them to be aware of how our device works. So that's how we handle the relationship with the broader community. The indications we see as primarily oncology, immunology, immuno-oncology, and CNS, right? So they are chronic disease states or very, very serious disease states where a patient would benefit from simplicity of infusion or even going home rather than receiving infusions in the clinic. And I think very, very technical question that's quite easy to answer. Viscosity limits, we've tested our device up to 180 centipoise, and we don't believe that that is a limitation. It's just as high as we've been asked to consider, and I don't hear of any limitations that I know of on the fill finish side. So I think that addresses that. Tim, I'll hand back over to you in terms of finding any other questions.
Sure. Yeah, I will add to the viscosity question, though. I think, as your product is more viscous, the line will have to run slower and there will be loss, right? So if you get above 20 centipoise, you're getting to the point where there may be some considerations from an aseptic filling standpoint that need to be part of your decision-making process. So again, as you're reformulating, don't hesitate to reach out to a CDMO and talk to them about capabilities and how viscosity comes into play. Don't wait.
Okay, great. All right, thanks both. Moving along here, this attendee would like to know if you could elaborate more on the part of eliminating silos in the primary container ecosystem.
I think it's very similar to what Greg has covered already, and that is that both of our organizations have already been working with the primary container, both those manufacturing the barrels as well, or the cartridges as well as the stoppers. We have great relationships with them. They want to do the same thing. They want to talk, they want to collaborate, they want to understand where the market is going. And so this last year has actually been a lot of fun because everybody wants to understand where, for those people that are making decisions, what are your needs? What are your needs going to be tomorrow? And so there's a lot of collaboration right now in regards to those manufacturers that make the stoppers, those manufacturers that make the cartridges. So it's a really exciting and learning time. Like I said, anytime you have a new product to work with, in this case, the product being a cartridge or a stopper, there are learnings. So please know that. But everyone seems to be working fairly well together in regards to sharing those learnings and understanding how to work together.
Okay, great.
Mary Lou,
Thanks.
good response. And I think I would just add from my side, right, that we, by opening up under CDA, of course, making sure that we're maintaining the confidentiality of the pharmaco, by having these three-way discussions, Mary Lou and the Graham folks are able to piece together things like initial volumes of what we need for things like a 20 milliliter asset or a 10 milliliter asset. So by sharing that sooner, our partners are taking fewer guesses on what the return on investment will be for the capex that they spend. So that to me is a real example of how these three-way, four-way NDAs between the various value players can really give Graham more confidence in investing in change parts, gives plunger suppliers more a reassurance that their 20 mil plunger will be a commercial success, so on and so forth. So I think just the more and the earlier, the better.
Right. Okay, thanks both. Time for one or two more here before we wrap things up. This attendee would like to know, do you see certain drug indications being the most near term for application of large volume SubQ delivery? I guess Mary Lou,
I would just repeat kind of a similar answer as to one of the previous questions. I think we see this driven by a few different things. So chronic illness, right? So things like, you would hopefully with oncology, where you have some manageable chronic cancers, there's a lot of also, acute life-threatening disease states as well. So immunology lends itself well to this space because people are living with this condition in and out, potentially for the rest of their lives. So the more you can simplify their experience, the better. Also, ongoing oncology treatment is a fertile space for innovation in drug delivery because we want these folks in their most immunocompromised state, right, as they're going through chemotherapy, as their immune system is functioning very, very low. We don't want them in a hospital or a healthcare environment. We believe that the home environment is far superior. So as we follow the safety studies that with oncology drugs and immunology drugs, we see them moving more and more to self-administration, and we're there to support as that happens. So hopefully that answers a little bit about that, but primarily to conclude, oncology, immunology, immuno-oncology, and a little bit of CNS in that order, I would say.
Okay, perfect. Did you want to add anything, Mary Lou? Are you good?
No, I'm good answer.
All right, we're going to take one more here before we wrap things up. And this attendee would like to know, from your experience, at what stage will the pharma company typically decide on the drug volume?
I can give mine, and who wants to start? Go ahead.
Go ahead, Greg.
I think ultimately it depends question, right? So really depends on the pharmaco. With a large pharmaco with a really collaborative team that speak frequently between the device team and the commercial team and the operations team, they may be looking at this preclinical in the R&D phase. They may have some idea of volume and therefore primary container need at that stage. But we've picked up projects in phase 2 and phase 3 where there's been a failure of a device and there's just a rapid need for something that generally speeds things up, right? When the drug is performing, but the device is not. So we've seen everything from R&D phases through phase 3. And like I said, largely dependent on the company and the urgency of the need. Mary Lou, I don't know if you have a similar breadth of data points, An
important piece of this story is that Graham usually gets involved in phase 2. And in most cases, by the point we're involved, the volume has been decided upon. So there's an opportunity to change it, of course, and that's okay, especially with these larger volume containers, as long as you're not jumping to a different size container. There's usually some flexibility in there, but we're most of our clients have locked in by phase 2.
Perfect. All right, great. Well, thank you both so much again. All right, so yeah, that's going to bring us to the conclusion of today's session. If we didn't get to your question, Mary Lou and Greg both have your contact details and we'll follow up with you directly. So yeah, thanks again, Mary Lou. Thanks again, Greg, for a really informative talk, for sharing your insights with us today. And thanks again to Grand River for sponsoring today's session. You want to be sure to visit them by clicking their logo at the top of the page. And thank you to everybody out there in the audience for your attendance and participation today. This session will be archived for 1 year on our website, contractpharma.com. And you'll also be receiving an email from us shortly when the session's available for on-demand viewing. And also don't forget to go into the resources tab there and download that PDF that we have available for you. So thanks very much for joining us, everyone, and have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.